Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to the November 2022 Carmine Street Metrics reading. We have a fantastic reading today. Three great features: Chad Abushanab, Quincy Lehr, and Susan Delaney Spear. And as usual, we have our fantastic open mic, which is an equally important part of our reading. So we'll begin with the open. Let's see. And the first open mic reader is, let's see, Mark. Yeah, Mark McDonnell. There you are. Have you unmuted?
I have, yeah.
Okay, great.
Big pause for anticipation there. I didn't know whether there was another Mark here.
There's a Marsha. No Mark.
It could have been Marsha. Right. Hello, everybody. I'm going to read. I don't think I've read this one before. I'm losing track, to be honest, but I don't think I have. But I'm going to read a poem called Bracken Close. I don't know yet if you have it in America. A close is like a street, so it's like Bracken Street or Bracken Road. Make more sense if you know that. And it's a sort of childhood, a dream of childhood, perhaps. Bracken Close. On Bracken Close that summer's day, the clouds made shadows on our play. We said we'd meet and run away from Bracken Close one summer's day. The smell of HB pencil wood, the universe of light and mud, the things I said you understood, to Bracken Close I came to pray. The clover mites, your garden wall, the thumb stained red, the ivy sprawl, all snaking green. I see it all on Bracken Close through mists of grey. Your iron shirt so white and clean, your daddy's soul so black and mean, and things were heard and felt and seen on Bracken Close that summer's day. A bicycle bell rings sharp and clear, an ice cream van, a drying tear, the long walk home, the churning fear, and Bracken Close so far away. Right, that's it.
That's great.
Thank you.
And our next open mic reader is Anne Drysdale.
Hello. This is a poem about a particular.
Can I hear you?
No, I just had a big message that said unmute.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Right. That's good to know. Stop it, Zoom. It's already disconnected me once. This poem's about a particular kind of doll, which you may or not know. It was popular in olden times. They had two different faces, and one was sad and one was happy, like emojis. And they're both on the same head, and you change their state of mind by swapping their little bonnets round from back to front, and then you held them the other way round. The poem is part of a sequence which was called The 7 Ages of the She Poet. And this is number 6, and it's called Surprised by Intimations of Mortality. Long, long ago, in the days of the Raj, my mother was brought up in India. Once, when the summer came to burn the plains, she went to Simla with my grandmother, and somehow her rag doll got left behind. It was an ordinary little thing by all accounts, but it had had two faces. One smiled benignly while the other wept. And Mother told me time and time again of how she ran to ask my grandmother, "Mummy, Mummy, where's my Dinah? One face laughing, one face crying." I wished she hadn't told me about Dinah. It gave me my first taste of impotence. If I came to her with a tale of woe, she capped it with a story of that dog. Childlike, I carried pain to her on trust, to have her soothe it with her sympathy, not shame me with his awkward empathy. It felt like hearing my father singing, uncomfortably inappropriate. Mothers are not supposed to grieve for dolls, or stick pins in the conscience of a child who would, but could not mend that old distress. I grew to hate the maudlin little voice in which she told the climax of the story. "Mummy, Mummy, where's my Dinah? One face laughing, one face crying." Some time ago, prowling an Oxfam shop, I spotted an extraordinary thing. A flat rag doll, decidedly two-faced. One grinned inanely while the other wept. I had to struggle with the urge to shout, "Mother, Mother, here's your Dinah. One face laughing, one face crying." So I bought the little blighter in response to inner prompting. Loving gesture, sacred duty. But the voice that spoke the loudest was the one that whispered archly, "That's the last we'll hear of Dinah, one face laughing, one face crying." Next time I visited, I took the doll. She thanked me, but seemed not to recognize just what it was that I was giving her. After they took away most of her cancer, Mother came home and I moved in with her. She was a small, decerebrated shadow. I, ill at ease with her new gentleness. Once, on a bad night, helping her to bed, she stopped to rest and settled on her knees, trapping her skirt so that she couldn't move. Love made me clumsy, and I stumbled too. We clutched each other, began to laugh, giggling like a pair of schoolgirls, both precariously balanced halfway up the narrow staircase. "Pull yourself together, woman. Less of this unseemly laughter." "Hold on tight, you silly bugger. Oh, we'll both be at the bottom." "Hold the banister, for God's sake." Half concern, half affection. "Hold me, Mother. I'm your Dinah. One face laughing, one face crying."
Thank you, Anne. That was very nice. Let's see. I'm getting this. Don't know why I'm not getting a spotlight for you, Claudia. There we
Hi,
go.
sorry.
There we go. There you are.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, yeah, I was going to read something else, but Anne's poem so inspired me to read something which is some childhood memory. Sorry, I had to plug in something. Okay, so this is called Arts and Crafts. It's in 3 parts. 1, shading. Before making a mark, I broke 3 rules. Snapping apart a darkly colored crayon, peeling 1/2 completely, 0 cover, abundant color, then turning it sideways to drag and swirl its width across the paper. Here was my shadow, yours, the universe without a star. Standing the crayon up, I drew stick figures. They too would need shadows. 2, finger paint. This kind of paint was only used in school since we already knew too much. Mosaics, gold leaf, tracing, creating plaster casts of hands and feet when we went to the beach. Connect the dots, coloring, sewing cards, and finger paint. Those were just busy work. Mother knew art, and I knew it was magic. And part 3, childhood revised. I never cut my fingertip on a stray blade, nor did I slip while chasing the good humor truck and bump my head on it. Good luck forever held me in its graces. Playgrounds, too, were friendly places. Mom went away for just 2 weeks to rest and study art techniques. Flowers bloomed on the balcony when she returned. Her memory remained intact. She held me near for decades to abolish fear. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And let's see, next is Paulette, Turco. And here she comes.
Hi,
Hi, Paulette.
thank you.
Thank you.
Well, since today we're playing with time, I have a poem about something in time. The sun's rise. I could choose to watch the sun pop up from Wild Plum Island.
Paulette, could you hold it a minute? Somebody has we're getting interference from another program. If somebody has something else running, would you please deal with it? Thank you. Look, no, we still hear it. Hello?
Ron Bremner, I think you're not on. You're
What is it that you're hearing?
muted.
A program, another program.
Yeah, I hear
I don't
something
know if
too.
it's TV or another Zoom program or radio.
I think if you
Ron,
mute,
sounds like a
mute all and
newscast.
then Paulette can.
Well, I
mute
did.
herself.
everyone and then
I thought everyone was muted.
Yeah, she mute all, then Paulette.
Okay, I muted all. Paulette can unmute. Paulette can unmute. Are you?
I
Okay,
did, yes.
okay, thanks, Alex, for
Thank you,
that
Alex.
technical advice.
Okay, I'll start again.
Thank you.
The sun's rise. I could choose to watch the sun pop up from Wild Plum Island Beach. That's where the sky becomes horizon, melding with the sea, 3 miles away from where I calmly lie. It's dark. I need to raise my head, get dressed, then grab a bite to eat, my cell phone, keys, and drive along the Merrimack on Water Street, river on my left. I'd feel the breeze while on the bridge, then park the car. Lights out, I'd climb the shallow dune and smell the air. Witness hints of color in the starless sky, reflected on the sea's veneer, disrupted in its rumbling onto shore, revealing rhythms with its lacy frill, the push and pull of tide. My camera capturing elusive, perfect stills until an hour passes, another, and it's fully day. Mesmerized, I'd hear the gulls' shrill cry, but things to do. I promised to return one daybreak soon. Meanwhile, here I lie. The sun's slow, silent rise has passed me by. Thank you.
Thank you, Paulette. Okay. So our first feature will be Chad Abushanab. Chad is the author of The Last Visit, which won the 2018 Donald Justice Poetry Prize. It's a really fierce, terrific collection of poems, book of poems. If you don't have it, you should get a hold of it, really. And Chad's poems have recently appeared in the New York Times Magazine, Literary Matters, the Swanee Review, and other places. He lives in Minnesota, where he's an assistant professor of English at Bemidji State University, and where he produces electronic music under the name of Titch Thomas. So let's see. Welcome, Chad. And, oh my goodness.
Okay,
Please unmute, yes.
there we go. All right, thank you very much. Yeah, Titch Thomas, if you don't get that reference, Google it. It's a really fun reference from a Philip Larkin poem. I usually don't tell people about it, but this felt like the group to reveal that too. Anyway, thank y'all so much. Thank you to Anton. Thank you to Wendy. Thank you to my other readers, Susan and Quincy, for being here today. Everyone at the open mic. Fun fact, Quincy, along with Anna Evans, actually published my first poem in Raintown Review like almost 10 years ago, almost a decade at this point, I think. So it's, I really appreciate that. And it's cool to be back at an event with you. Anyway, I'm going to read some poems, new-ish stuff. I'm going to read 4 really short poems and then a longer piece that just felt appropriate for the moment. This first poem is called First Snow. After, there is a crystal stillness, like in a dream seconds before it shatters into waking light. Nothing moves. Silence radiates up from hidden streets, broken only by the crack of limbs beneath the heft of new snow. Come morning, the big plows will raise the shimmering tableau, and everything will begin again. For now, we watch from darkened windows, unable to make a sound, to even breathe, in fear of what small ruin we might bring. So you'll notice a theme here. A lot of my poems that I've written in the last couple of years have a heavy focus on snow. I'm from the South originally. I'm from South Carolina, and moving to the extreme North Woods, up here near the Canadian border, this is just completely unfamiliar to me. The snow has, kind of ruined me and dominated my imagination. We have winter, like 6 months out of the year. It's already snowing outside right now, actually. All right, this poem is called Hospice. All through January, you wished him dead. And when, at last, he died, you stayed beside his bed. You waited for the sun to parse the window frost, for light to drift into the room and consecrate the loss. You blessed the morning's lack of tears. You didn't look away. Sometime soon, you'll think about that moment, and you'll say, with practiced tones of false conviction, to see him die was my attrition, and know it had to be that way. Thaw. The winter, having lasted longer than expected, sent cruel messages down the line. When the ice finally melted, there were more than the usual findings of bodies down along the waterfront. Fingers gripping tattered blankets ripped from worn-out sleeping bags, blood frozen black in the corners of mouths, eyes gone blank as the freshly thawed lake. We wondered what it must have been like, drifting off to sleep beneath the weight of snow. But of course, April came around, and we forgot again how terribly cold the world can get these days. And the last of my short ones, this is called Our Snowmen at the End of Winter. I'm already looking towards like March. They cannot hide how winter wore them down, how exhaust turned them gray. And though my sons want to build them back, to pack what slush is left to make them whole, it will not stay. The forecast calls for a small rain, and I've heard snow melt trickle down my gutters into the drain on nights without the boys to fill this space with noise, diminishing a little at a time, the figures slumping on my lawn. Another day, and they'll be gone. Once they were a family. Okay, so those were some short poems. I wanted to close out with a longer piece. It's a little different from what I usually write. I've been working on this for a few years now. One of the weirder, like more wild card influences on my poetry has been Kenneth Koch, right? Which is a weird choice because he doesn't really play around with form too much in the later stuff, at least. There's not a real like definable structure there. It's really just kind of all over the place. And I mean, the dude wrote a lot, so it's not like every poem can be a banger, but there are some really, really great poems in there. One of my favorites is his piece, The History of Jazz, right? Where the speaker of that poem has invented a character named Madeline Reyerbacher, who is supposedly the person who like invented jazz, right? So it's like Koch, poking fun at jazz, he's poking fun at biography, and he's making up this whole like insane history of where something came from. When I moved to West Texas to do my doctoral work, one thing I learned as soon as I got there was that there were no native trees in West Texas. Everything that was grown there had been brought in and transplanted, right? The only thing that actually grows naturally are like scrub brush, stuff like that. So I was really, given that idea taken by how much people really cared about their lawns out in the sort like sun-scorched wasteland. People would literally paint their lawns green if they were too brown, like we had just droughts constantly out there. And this is like a really weird thing. Lawn care is a bizarre American like hobby in the first place. All that just goes to say that I wrote a poem sort of in the style of Kenneth Koch's The History of Jazz, except about the history of grass and how grass may have come into our consciousness as a thing that we want to put on our front lawns, So this is a longer piece, like I said, it's in 5 parts. And it's called The History of Grass. It's metrical, it's in a blank verse, so this does suit. It does suit the intent of the event. The History of Grass. 1. The salesman tripped into the one-horse town with his suitcase and a cart he pulled with his shoulders. When the wind exhaled in sudden frustration, it kicked up a cloud of dirt that tasted like baseball, and the salesman thought, "I've made it." He set about pinning flyers to the most prominent posts to announce the arrival and to urge the people to meet in the town square that was actually a circle at noon the following day. It would be a Saturday. The flyers were red and green and stood out against the earth dust shades of summer out west. After he put up about 20, he had a drink of water and allowed himself to think of the ocean. No one ever had to sell the ocean, he thought. And once he retired the leather straps of the cart and the calloused handle of the suitcase, he might spend days sleeping in coconut milk drinks and reading novels until night came with brandy on the shore. Yet when the sun was its meanest, he was happy, and he hung the rest of the flyers with a smile. When night came and the red and green flyers turned bruised in the new angle of moon, he wondered where a guy got a steak dinner in this tiny kingdom of dirt, and kicked off down the main street with a flat, dizzy whistle. 2. Even the town horse was in attendance, and to be sure, they woke him with carrots at 10 and promised him apples at 1. They draped the velvet cape with the town name emblazoned in orange over the hulk of his back and led him by the nose out of the stable dark. Mary Mary, who'd cared for him since she was 9, shed a long, proud tear, as she always did when he was called, and packed herself a lunch. Solemn bows as he passed by, and the people fell behind him like walking in pilgrimage. They didn't speak and kept their heads down as the horse crossed the sand to the round square. Someone had built a stage overnight, and the salesman by rote began to climb it, even though he was afraid of heights. The day was blue, and at noon they'd arrived and assembled around the horse, who'd looked derisively at the stage. It made the salesman nervous, but he flipped the latches on the suitcase, knowing what was inside should change the world. 3. It's like Carpet, the one-eyed man said slowly. Then Odin Buckley, who leaned against the well, finished with impeccable timing, but for the dirt. The salesman held the green square like a prophecy. It grows to cover the ground, he said. It grows outward like spilled milk, only the milk is green and the table is where you set your house. There was silence and the sounds of dry stones slipping off the nearby hills. They looked to the horse, who fixed the salesman like a shark. Mary, who held the reins, put her ear into the hot of his breath, nodded, and ran to the stage. The crowd opened for her like a parting sea, and she climbed the stage effortlessly as a spider scaling the rough of a tree. The salesman did nothing when she plucked the swatch of grass from his hands without asking. She presented it to the horse, who lowered his head and began to chew at it. And after a moment, Mary nodded, and the people lined up with their money held out in their left hands, and the salesman, quite pleased, directed them neatly to the covered cart behind the stage. 4. That night, as the salesman sat by his fire, the long town behind him, he imagined the stars as salt and grew very thirsty. He was watering a square of grassy soil with his yellow can. He held the can up and pretended it was a rain cloud. The water wet his shirt and his hair, and though he drank very little of it, it seemed to do the trick. Tomorrow continues west, and he imagined where the sun would rise, over which hills. The fire threw the last of its dim red when he took a photo out of his pocket, the girl on the beach, and though she was pretty, it was the ocean behind her he took to bed at night. He imagined his feet burning in the sand and looking back over his shoulder to a path of green stretching forever into revelation. And before it was dark, really dark, he imagined Mary in the scent-rich stable, brushing the burrs from the mane of the horse, her whispers lost in the tussle of wind from the east, and he slept because hers was a way that felt honest after all. 5. As Mary brushed the dust and burrs from the horse's mane, she did not tell him how important he was, to her and to the others, but instead whispered the story of his birth into the dark wishing well of his ear. His mother had died, but the foal brought a rain which put out a fire that threatened many of the bigger farms, not theirs. When it was finished like spinning silk, Mary put the brush into the bucket and the bucket in the corner of the stable. Mary bent and blew out the candle, but the moon slipped in through the crooked slats and the horse's eyes gleamed in the half-dark. Mary wrapped her arms around his neck. When it's green, she whispered, and there was more, but the wind rose and fell, and the words were lost like wanderers walking circles in an endless desert. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate you listening to me.
Thank you so much, Chad. Everyone could unmute. Unmute to.
Nicely done.
Well done.
Fantastic.
Thank you, Chad.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chad.
Gorgeous.
Great.
Indeed. Okay, now I'll mute everyone again. And John Foy is our next reader at the Open.
Okay, thanks, Wendy. And thanks, Chad. That was a fantastic reading. You can hear me, right?
Yep.
Okay, great. I'm going to read a poem from my most recent book called No One Leaves the World Unhurt, which won the Donald Justice Poetry Prize, like Chad's book, and it was published last year by Autumn House Press. It's called Crane. Why exert myself without a cause? I'd rather sit and watch the tower crane outside my city window toward the bridge. In summer smog that infiltrates the mind, it's like a ghost, attenuated, gray beyond its own particularity. And later on, at night, it will become the lonely, red-eyed sentinel I know, keeping watch above the work it's done, the work that it will undertake again when daytime gets to drinking over Queens. But that is not the point. The tower crane holds itself apart, and does not need to speak about the nature of its trust. It makes a pick and puts a load in place and stands locked in without a narrative. You too, my crane, will not exert yourself without a cause. But when you work, you move with ministerial integrity across the range of your appointed tasks, a small portfolio of sky events that you alone are fit to orchestrate. Imprisoned in triangularities, you demonstrate a way to rise above the laws of gravity you work against, all clearance and capacity and height. You oversee a tower here and there, not asking what is guaranteed to last. I'm given now to you. I only hope that my line too pays cleanly off the sheave without a hitch at singular altitude, the crane block running incorruptibly, the reeving tight, the lifting taut and true. Thank you.
Thank you, John. And let's see. Okay, our next reader will be David Katz. There you go.
Okay. Thank you, Wendy. And this is very ironic, John, because my poem is also about crane, a crane, but it's not about the machine, but the poet, Hart Crane.
Oh.
It's a sonnet, and it has an epigraph that is one of his Crane's most famous lines. It's from Voyages. And the epigraph is, "The bottom of the sea is cruel." The real Hart Crane. The only evidence we have is clear. Hart Crane was never who we thought he was. The sum of him's a bridge carved out of air, North Labrador, the Keys, the Southern Cross, stations of an aspiration blue as the Empyrean. He's not someone we lost at sea in 1932. Yet that's the man we fix our focus on. He breathed his last just shy of 33, and then was made a martyr to his art. The agonies of his biography, the lurid ways in which he fell apart, deflect us from the lexicon he is, the only part of him that surfaces. Thank you.
Thank you, David. And okay, the next reader will be Linda Stern.
Thank you, Wendy, Anton, and Therese also for having Carmine Street metrics readings every month, because I love them. I look forward to them. I'm happy you're doing it. So this poem was published in 1978 in a magazine called Endymion, and it's Whom the Soul Loveth is the title. It has an epigraph from Sepphoris. The new moon rose over Alexandria with the old moon in her arms. In the dream, there was a doorway through which I could not walk. Waking, I feared I lost you. Only the many small, odd things kept us together. I am talking of the blue streaks across your eyes, the unfolding faces, garden bricks, the slipping coverlet on the bedroom floor. You think I mean opposites, but I mean alone, I mean open. The thick streams of grasses, ribbons of rock. I mean the side by side of things, thus darkness is alone without the morning. I tried to unveil you in the dream, but you had a great power and you would not come. You would not show me your face. In the dream, I was not content to know you in the darkness. Sweet touch, hands, hair were pain to me, like stabbing, the breaking of things. Fitful, awake, I could not be content not to know what I did not know in a dream. You are the passive marble face of sleep, unyielding because unmoved, unmoved because unknown, moonlike, a swollen pocket of light in the white water seas. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Okay, let me try to call up our next reader. Uh-oh. Who will be Robert Donohue. As soon as I find him.
Yeah, if you search for R. Donohue, that's the screen name here appears on there.
R. Donohue, there he is. Okay.
Yeah. I accidentally signed up with my email address. So, this one's about a real thing, real industrial product that's always loomed large in the family mythology. It's called Lundy's Undies. Mom worked at Lundy's, and the firm's design was for the diapers used in outer space. More of a pouch, this needed interface, the engineers committed to refine. But Mom worked personnel, and as a sign of what she was supposed to take with grace, when Mom got married, so she knew her place, it was expected that she should resign. Despite this treatment, Mom was full of pride and thought her work important as the rest. The astronauts had nothing left to hide when putting Lundy's product to the test, and voyaging where none before could dare. Because of Mom, they had clean underwear.
Thank you, Robert. Okay, we have one more open mic reader before our next feature, and that is Meredith. Let's see, Meredith Bergmann, please unmute.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I live in Massachusetts, but I have a New York City poem, a recent one. It's a sonnet that begins in blank verse and then goes into a more organized form. The wooden leg. I saw it on the sidewalk near the street, a cast-off leg of well-turned golden oak with a hefty block at one end for attachment, a household leg, too massive to replace a pirate's or a soldier's lost to violence, made for a kitchen table. I picked it up, thinking it might be good for something, still, and bore it home down 2nd Avenue. It grew on me, and I grew into it, my slender frame responding to its weight. I walked as though I knew that I could bash some random bad guy's head in. I felt great, which scared me. I never found a use for it, and when we moved, I threw it in the trash. Thank you.
Thank you, Meredith. Good to see you. Meredith was a host of Carmine Street Metrics in the past too, and gave us our terrific logo, our Carmine Sapphic logo that still appears at least on the email site. Okay, so our next feature will be Quincy R. Lehr, who probably needs no introduction here. But I will anyway read the one he provided and supplement it a little bit. You may not know that before Quincy R. Lehr invented the clock, if you wanted to know what time it was, he had to sacrifice a goat to Odin and hope that the Allfather would descend along the Rainbow Bridge to tell you, say, that it was 6:37 p.m. And he's also written some books, among them New Hits and Lost Classics, which is a really good one, and the Dark Lord of the Tiki Bar, among others. He's done some editing, including, as Chad indicated, he was and is, I hope, the editor of the Raintown Review, a fabulous journal that we look forward to reading again one of these days. And he's had some jobs and he's lived in some cities, including, lucky for us, New York, and lucky for y'all on the left coast, currently LA. Okay, so take it away, Quincy.
Welcome to the next shittiest day of your life. The next headline that's dumber than the last. The next catchphrase waiting to be silkscreened onto a million hats. Welcome to some idiot's Twitter feed, some moron's TikTok thing, some Facebook thread from an elderly relative decrying the foregoing with racism. Welcome to medieval weapons you can order online as tools, Soviet tanks deceptively sold as historical memorabilia, literary journals on the dark web. Welcome to the Thunderdome, Morlocks and Eloy, those reasonably likely to survive, and everyone else, including you. Welcome to the Joystick Apocalypse, online foreign policy, online feuds with Rosie O'Donnell. Welcome to Count Dracula, Mr. Epstein, Kill Dog. Welcome to small towns with big prisons, bad men with good table manners, beach days in the worst place on earth. Welcome to comic book heroes saving us, comic book franchises titillating us with new and louder threats, comic book Ubermenschen, who aren't us and will never be us, but look like a more representative sample of us. Welcome to the same jokes but dirtier, the same talking points but meaner, the same steak but tofu or ostrich or parakeet, or what the fuck is this made out of anyway? Welcome to my pain, your pain, the pain we both feel, were it not for our privilege. Welcome to NPR Rock, grant-aided limited edition punk, Schoolhouse Rap. Welcome to Calling Out, Calling In, Not Calling Your Mother. Welcome to Rhyme, Meter, the Dutch East India Company. Welcome to Tinder, Grindr, LinkedIn. Welcome to the Fall's Lineup, the autumn's possible breakout stars, another season of the Bad Guys show with a bigger budget and more ludicrous scripts. Welcome to 140 character literary controversies, versified clapback, virtual book tours. Welcome to post-hardcore ambient thrash, Viking pagan folk metal, womanist masses, according to Saint Beyonce. Welcome to humane dogfights, anthropomorphic lovers, artisanal shit-ass. Welcome to your veins, your arteries, Applebee's. Welcome to the birds, the bees, the rats having sex on your food. Welcome to some glib dipshit who promises he'll give a damn. Some sentient walking cane rising in a Hitler salute. Some overpriced bar where the Cuban Missile Crisis never ended. Welcome to the next one, the one that's going to be huge, the one with more big dick energy than the biggest dick you've ever seen. Thanks for having me, Wendy, Anton, Therese, in absentia. Great reading, Chad. Looking forward to Susan. This next one, I don't like to do explanations particularly, but here's an explanation. So in the Proto-European culture, roughly 4000 BC at the north end of the Caspian Sea, there was a rite of passage for the young men of the tribe, particularly the elite young men of the tribe called the Koryos. As well as we can construct Proto-Indo-European. You take the young men, again, particularly the warrior class, have them kind of pretend to be sentient wolves, leave the village and kind of go around raping, murdering, and stealing for a year, and then come back, and then you're a man now. The Spartans ritualistically declaring war on the Helots every year is seen as a sort of remnant of this. The notion of the werewolf, some scholars think, comes from this. So just keep that notion in mind as I go through this one. It's called Werewolf Insurrection for Jake Angeli, AKA the QAnon Shaman. A pack of youths stalks the watchful steppe, clad in skins and furious in their hunger, sinewy and feral. They will steal and murder. They will rape and butcher to keep the band alive. A Wanderjahr more liminal than what your stomach knows, or what your heart on intimates. A race is reproduced, imposed as an attack, a rite of passage, a place to put the cows. North and east and west, an old man's tale distorted through nostalgia remains, though gussied up as myth or archetype in languages descended from his own. By ship and map, by compass and by rail, there always are neighbors and something left to steal. The monsters in the shadows always drool. Some cosplay weirdo bellows at his flag behind a podium where all can see, leading and following phantoms long since dead or always just imagined. Impotent and plant-based, he adopts the Koryos swag, imagining the blood of foes left safe behind locked doors just past the colonnade. 1,000 memes, 1,000 epithets of lasting fame to bring his forebears shame. Just down the hall, a warrior arms his weapon to stun those who'd usurp his kith and tribe. It grazes past his nutsack, and the jolt immobilizes him, continuing to pump the power of the thunderer into his shriveled balls until his heart, heavy with burgers, gives out and he dies. All right, so this next one is, I guess, going to be my contribution to the childhood poem, albeit late adolescence poem, gestalt of the reading. So it's called Love in the Clinton-Yeltsin Era Central Time Zone. I saw her at the end of history, a manic pixie dream girl in black hats, a smile of adolescent irony hanging like an imported cigarette, a denizen of corners. As she sat off to the side, I stared. The smell of sweat, Doritos, and the Oklahoma air, sweet and allergenic, hit my nose. I didn't sneeze and held a pensive pose. A Walmart of a decade, grunge CDs about to hit the bargain bin, left stranded like hapless Soviet cosmonauts. The breeze reminded us that time, like space, still moved. The wall was down. The eagle long since landed, and we were told that nothing could be improved, that this was the teleology, the sum of humankind's equation. Cure our laughter, add a life spent in the morning after. Never trust a hippie. Punk was dead, and there she was in her Doc Marten boots, chin-length bangs and a partly shaven head. And me with clothes and hair and mostly black, the latter though showing some brown roots. With nothing up ahead, we both looked back and somehow saw each other as we did. No way to travel, but neither was the way mapped out for us. Another summer day, another night. The party was a bore, though everyone was there, and every room echoed with conversations. You could score a few hours in your head if so inclined. An afternoon special tale of woe and doom, erasers in the center of your mind. Or just a gacked out evening passing time with tabs of LSD or skunk swag weed, mushrooms, alcohol, or trucker speed. Brown hair and gray-green eyes, high cheekbone face, insomniac intelligence, a joke she told herself running in a race between the shimmers of her glance and lips. I sneered, though fuck knows why, and lit a smoke, arrogant from lungs to fingertips, the dumbest smart guy in the room. But still she followed me outside. Cue the blurred memories of teenage passion stirred. Gas was cheap. I used to drive all night, looking for crowds I knew would be at home. Nothing was going on. Cosmic spite, a scene commodified and then discarded like cardboard boxes, plastic, styrofoam. The day after Christmas, I wasn't brokenhearted. So much as empty as a city street on Sunday night with everything closed down, counting the days till I got out of town. Ambition needs a narrative, an arc, rising action climax denouement. And what we had was groping in the dark, along with books we partly understood, discussed across a coffee and croissant some mornings. Good enough, if not quite good. Understanding is the bonus point. Experience itself, the pass and fail, the revolution, Jonah and the whale. I got the girl, or for a while at least. Mazel tov, yippee-ki-yay. Behold the bread and theorize the yeast, but know that when you eat it, that's the end. Right into the sunset. What the hey. History wasn't over. That pretend conceit was soon demolished. We were too. I wouldn't say I miss her. The debris remains beneath, and archaeology reveals the substrates, relics of a life rebuilt on top of ruins. As I drive through a different city, kids and wife await me. As the radio plays a song I barely liked but heard back then. Alive, but not like this. When summers seemed so long, when love was hard and love was what we had. I changed the station, hum a melody that sings out past the end of history. So there will be a quiz on this next one for which ones are based on real people and which ones I made up. It's called Gen X Stories. He used to be the bass guitarist for the classic hardcore band Die Capitalist Pig and was on their seminal album, We All Fucked Your Girlfriend, even the bass player. Now he lives in South Pasadena, teaches memoir writing at USC, and voted for Elizabeth Warren in the 2020 Democratic Party primary after considering Beto O'Rourke and Pete Buttigieg. He also just blocked you for saying, quite truthfully, that the Clash weren't actually that good. When she was a girl, she had a Cabbage Patch doll she named after Sally Ride. In high school, she wasted 2 weeks of everyone's time because her English teacher alluded to the character of Shylock as an anti-Semitic trope, and she decided he was an anti-Semite. Even though most of the teaching staff and administration hated her afterwards, her essay on the matter got her into Bard. Now she works for a nonprofit that specializes in teaching homeless children how to play Dixieland jazz. She also just blocked you because you called Tulsi Gabbard thick to see what would happen. He spent high school listening to Napalm Death and Cannibal Corpse and trying unsuccessfully to kick you in the genitals. Once, after taking several tabs of LSD, he joined the army and ended up doing a tour in Iraq. He got an honorable discharge, gained 300 pounds, and is the leading Facebook expert on how war crimes are actually good. He also just blocked you because could have been anything, really. She was Native American in that Elizabeth Warren way, in that way that you only know if she told you a lot, and you still had to take her word on it. Now, she lives in the worst suburb in your home state and produces children, revenue for chain restaurants, vaguely white nationalist online tirades, and secondhand lung cancer. She also just blocked you over the chain restaurant that she likes more than you do of all the goddamn things. When he was a boy, he wanted to be president as soon as he ceased wanting to be a leopard or a cobra. After a school career spent listening to classical music and doing an impression of an unusually ambitious Teddy Ruxpin, he settled for being a corporate attorney. His hobbies include playing the piano, collecting rare liqueurs from the former Soviet bloc, and tweeting about the hashtag resistance. He also just blocked you when you called his would-be Bond villain boss an asshole. She was always going to be a star and was not without a certain waifish charm, by which I mean she had a fondness for flowing dresses and singing in her thin, reedy voice to a tentatively strummed guitar until people hated her. Now she owns a cafe which she bought to save the open mic from the previous owner who thought it sucked. She also just blocked you when she remembered you called Tori Amos white girl suicide music 25 years ago. When someone told his high school that his generation would work harder than their parents for less remuneration and less job security, it gave him a boner, and he knew exactly why. Now he has exactly the job you think he would, precisely the ugly McMansion you think he'd live in, the kids with exactly the same god-awful names you think they'd have, and exactly the same car with exactly the precise bad gas mileage everyone suspected. He also just blocked you because he thought you were making fun of him when you cracked a joke about people who like Charlie Sheen. She does a reasonably good impression of being Michel Foucault's illegitimate daughter, Judith Butler. Her signature moves are using the word radical to modify every noun referring to her academic work and looking violently ill every time someone says dialectics. She's an adjunct professor at 5 schools, is shopping around 7 articles and 9 book manuscripts. She also just blocked you for being a socialist. His first big concert was Garth Brooks in 1990, and his belt buckles and pickup trucks have gotten bigger ever since. He has an MBA from the State University, lives in a 4-bedroom home with unforgivably high ceilings, and manages a sporting goods store that mostly sells guns and fishing rods to fat people. He also just blocked you for being a coastal elite. In the 8th grade, she cried for 2 hours after she got mud on her Guess jeans during a wilderness excursion. Her first husband was a cop, and her current husband is a white-collar criminal who's an actuary on the side. She loves both her boys, who despite being 7 and 13 respectively, are already large adult sons. She also just blocked you because you said that cheese was racist ironically, and she took it literally. He's 46 years old and still wears leather. Being the father of 2 has had no discernible effect on his level of swearing. He's a middle-class Ivy League leftist who distrusts people who went to elite schools. He's an alternative rock snob who thinks most first-wave punk music is unlistenable and goth rock is funny. His hobbies are reading, writing, caffeine, vituperation, and hate. He hasn't blocked you, but sometimes you wish he would. So the last time I read for Carmine Street Metrics as a feature was 1 week before the entire world locked down for COVID. I wrote this poem at one of my old locals. I had several when I lived in Brooklyn. Sometime around hour 2 of the happy hour. I went for 4 hours, one of the reasons I used to drink there. The poem is called The Place I Used to Live Forever. So for Brooklyn, broadly writ. I used to find it funny. Chelsea boots, crushed velvet, leather pants, and one more payment always due. The false extravagance of day job bohemia. I wore it well. I wore it with panache. I hoarded it like old LPs or a stoner's secret stash. As tactics went, it wasn't quite Sun Tzu. The archers faced the sun in a crazed assault on common sense. I think I nearly won, but nearly doesn't work in love or rent. The constant sacrifice of money to that walk-up flat. To hope this might suffice until the barricades went up again and Comrade Brummel rose to rid us of the landlord class and lineated prose. And art was life and light was art and shit. I said it with a smirk. I stayed up, smoked my cigarettes, and made it into work. In Memory's Indian summer, it was cool. The sun in counterpoise to cold winds out of Canada. A constant human noise suffused the air from brownstones on the street, as half-heard notes of pride tickled my ears in neighborhoods still lightly gentrified. I'm never moving back. It fucking sucked, romantic as it was. The heartbreak turning into lines, each hangover a clause, and the epic I was sure I had to write and did. And it was done. The words fell down the fire escape, not reaching anyone. Closing credits. The sun has set on the celluloid cowboy, dismounted and maudlin, vaguely remembering imperial power, the piercing bullets that hit our hero. He heaved on the ground as women wailed and the West spread out like a colored canvas for the camera. Now a ranch house relapse in a rented place, a mess of mementos off a major street near the Hollywood Hills. He hears stories of feature films set far away, Sober Sidemen is cybernetic transmission of movies. The mutable light of Sundays once spent in Cineplex is outsourced to Asia. He feels his age, his wasted weakness. The warm metal of the gun he got in his gloried youth is a symbol of something. A simple moral in the flash of a film's firepower. A flexed fist of righteous fury, but longer and tarnished and lean and metallic. Or its primary power. The point where a man, conqueror no longer, calls his own curtain. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Wendy. Thank you, Anton. Looking forward, Susan. Great reading, Chad. Thanks to all the open micers.
Thank you so much, Quincy. Okay, let's see. Rob Wright is our next reader. Okay.
Yeah, I'm glad I had a break before reading after Quincy. Hard act to follow. This past week was the three feasts that actually the only religious holidays I observed, the All Hallows, the Feast of All Saints, and Feast of All Souls. And I wrote the other All Souls has been done, as has Hallows Eve, but I thought I'd go with the Saints. Feast of All Saints. They present their invitations to the man in black. Has Death been brought here to act as concierge? The chairs fill up. The sun sits at the head. He's chosen to come in his childish shape, suffer the little ones, etc. Veronica, playing the older sister, wipes his face, while his siblings, James and John, look on resentfully. He always gets the girls. Oddly, the management has turned away familiar faces. They refused Mary Salome. So I say, come to my place. It isn't far. They pile in. Joan smells of smoke, but pleasantly, like fresh brewed pot of Russian tea. Jammed next to her is Anthony, who reeks of sweat and dung. Others, William Blake and Swedenborg, babble about angels, while Anne Sexton catches Auden's shaky eye. He gracefully declines, instead offers her a cigarette. Then we arrive at my blue door in the endless wall. Once in, we're greeted by the hounds of love, the retriever and the wolfish malamute. Jones put off, but pets the goddess cat, bunnied in the laurel which shades the lawn, now spread with figs and pickles that St. Nick has brought along. A recent face, John Paul, has been roped into this glad company and is not sure he likes being teased by the horn and leering goat boy whose lusty slappers dance and pour the wine. He wonders who these people are. Where are the cheering crowds? He didn't think it would be like this at all.
Great, thank you, Rob. Good to see you as always. And next is Gerald Wagner. Hey.
Hey.
You, Jerry.
No, here I am.
Here you are.
Unmute myself. There we go.
Yeah, you're all set.
Yeah. All right. All right, just briefly, early last summer, I fell into a strangely unnatural relationship with Pantoons and wrote 22 of them in a row. But this one was accepted in public, is currently online in Green Mountain Review. It's called Swaths of Stars. I bought a fried bread taco that brisk afternoon, certain I came here to end something, some poems or traumas in need of triage. You don't know the number of nights I lay certain I was now at the end of something clear that flows down from mountain snow. You don't know the number of nights I lay swallowing galactic swaths of cold stars that flowed down from mountain snow to lie awake in lakes on still crisp nights. I swallowed single galactic swaths of stars to smuggle back a batch of cold comfort They lie awake in lakes on still crisp nights, unaware that landlocked salmon are there to smuggle back batches of cold comfort before wolfing it down under big city sky. Unaware that landlocked salmon were there, I bought a fat fry bed taco that afternoon. Greedily, I wolfed it down under a bright city sky. Some poems are traumas in need of triage. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. And next is Alex Pepple.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I was going to read something brand new that I just wrote yesterday. It was a love poem. But on reflection, I think I'll give you something more morbid from a while back. My burial plot. In bankruptcy, it can evade the dread taxman, whose sneaky trained arm reaches yonder to aim at riches, for my accountant claim. Beginning with the pharaoh of yore, oft drained of marrow, though not of worldly goods, it seems how one eludes grave robbers is the same, old age or not, end game. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. And next is Luke Stromberg.
Hello, everybody. Read this poem here. It's called My Father's Hands. I don't think I've ever read this one in person before. My father's hands. My small child hand held the hand of my father. His palm was creased like a well-worn piece of leather, calloused in spots and burned red from the sun. My father's hands were hands that got things done. They looked so mighty, fleshy and deeply veined, and seemed to me the secret of manhood explained. But what are my hands? They're not my father's kind. Grown older, not up, I feel I'm groping blind. His fingernails with their small lunar crescents come back as his and not some convalescence. But I tended to them once, his hands then pale, atrophied, surprisingly so frail. They hung there limp, unable to close or bend, nor could he speak or even smile in the end.
Thanks, Luke. That was beautiful, and I hope to attend on Zoom your book launch. Okay, so we're ready for our last feature. Susan Delaney Spear, a poet and teacher who recently relocated to Tampa, Florida. Susan Delaney Spear is the author of 2 books of poetry, Beyond All Bearing and On Earth. Her sonnet crown, The Messenger, won the Kim Bridgeford Memorial Sonnet Contest in 2021. That's in connection with Poetry by the Sea, and that's a really a great honor. So congratulations again on that, Susan. She is the co-author with David Rothman of Learning the Secrets of English Verse, a creative writing poetry textbook published this year by Springer. And we're looking forward to hearing her read. So take it away, Susan.
Thanks. Hi, everybody. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
It's a great honor to be invited to read here at Carmine Street Metrics. It's been a banquet of riches for the ears and for the heart. I will say I feel a little bit like Sarah Teasdale might feel if she was reading after Ginsberg. So I'll do my best here. So I'm going to read you a couple of poems from my book, which came out in the spring, and I never had a launch because I fractured my wrist and then I was moving to Tampa. So a few out of that book. The title poem, On Earth. Blessed be the lettuce pickers, the wards and waifs, the overweight and underfed, the unnamed, the average, the slandered. Blessed be the misunderstood, the latchkey kids, the shy, the shunned, the uncool, the stone cold sober, the street sweepers. Blessed be the night shift, the unfriended, those who try, the drivers and delivery boys, the widows, the utterly forgiving. Blessed be the utterly forgiven, the bussers, the barren, the gunned down, the onlys and the singles, those who try again. Blessed be the addicts, the true believers, the doubters, the kind, the blue sky dreamers, the down and outers. Blessed be the last leaf on the tree, the parched and hollow, the seed sowers, the ardent seekers, those in second place, the commuters on the city bus. Blessed be the here and now. Blessed be the there and then. Your kingdom come, O Lord. When? I always find it kind of interesting at these readings how poems will speak to each other, unintended. This one is about moving from snow to sun. So Chad talked to us about moving into snow. This is called the Palmer's Tale, but Palmer's as in the old-fashioned word for pilgrim, and it has a hat tip to Julianne of Norwich. It's dark when we roll out, the mountains at our backs. Tonight, there's no deep well of stars above. We caravan like palmers riding husky horses, traveling from 40 years of columbine and snow to lemon trees, our daughter and the sea. I sigh into the rearview mirror and see our townhome melt away like mountains into midnight or a wet spring snow beneath the Colorado sun. No farewells. This is no easy leave taking. Traveling east, I squeeze the wheel with both my palms. From his car ahead, my husband's palm surfs the shiny air. Hopes like sea waves roll, rise, then break in Kansas. We travel fields where bales of hay are mini mountains and nascent ears of corn poke up in well-groomed rows, rooting on winter's snow. I listen to a tale of uncertainty and snow, a young girl leading men to safety. I palm away my sympathetic tears and wheel across Tennessee toward a house I've yet to see. Did faith sustain that girl over unknown mountains? Inch by inch in rush hour traffic, we travel in Atlanta's heavy heat, traveling through a city rarely blessed by snow. For decades, we'd obeyed the summons of lofty mountain passes. Today, we follow a lowly call of palm fronds, ibis, lightning, progeny, and seaborne breezes. Ah, now I hear it. All shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well. This I whisper as I travel toward endless summer, where I hope to see moss drip down from trees like snow, egrets dance the two-step, palm trees soar and waves smooth sandy mountains. All shall be well in sun or snow for us tandem travelers, modern palmers, as we move from mountains to the sea. Cloudburst. Sad news this morning, reads my daughter's text. Ravi passed last night. Ravi, whom I've never met. How to grieve a man that I have never met and now will never meet. I find myself beset by this amorphous loss. He would have been her uncle by marriage, but for COVID-19. The weather report predicted a stiff 50 degrees, and I decide to run to feel an angry breeze. I think, I'll beat the downpour and quickly change my clothes. A mile out, the wind whips hard and the rain's a drumming prose. I pass a Starbucks and notice the vacant dining area. Oddly, I think of Elijah, transported to heaven by chariot. But Ravi's death was not a smooth heavenward glide. COVID victims wrestle death with no one by their side. At 2 miles out, too late to turn around, large drops pelt my legs, my bare forearms, and the unforgiving asphalt. The water rushes in gutters. I plunge through its freezing foam. Drops weep from the brim of my cap. Run 3 miles from home. I picture a deluge of faces, a flood of decimation, 200,000 plus, the size of a small nation. My shirt plasters my ribs, my shoes and socks drowned. Numbness creeps from thumb to elbow. Run, the storm pounds. As I fumble for my key, I say his name aloud, Ravi. One by one they die, this unspeakable enormity. Okay, I think somebody mentioned baseball earlier. So people are either really happy today or really unhappy. But I have a poem that combines baseball and poetry. It's called Poetry 101. It must have been a Saturday, for Dad was in the living room coaching the Pirates from the old tweed couch. I, at the cantaloupe-colored kitchen counter, was reading Heidi and nibbling an ice cream bar. Dad had one eye on the TV and one on the transistor. Allie, Mazeroski, double play, 2 away. As Dad tuned in, I tried tuning out the cheering, moaning fans, the strikes and balls, and Dad shouting, slide! Here at Forbes Field, the bottom of the 9th, the radio spit, crackled. Dad yelled, swing! Silence groaned through Steel Valley. Dad stood, sighed, came my way and said, well, there is no joy in Mudville, as he opened the brown fridge door and poured a glass of Coke. Daddy, what did you say? What's Mudville? Mudville is the place where the mighty fall. I swear the steel man's blue eyes shone. He straightened up his spine, sipped his Coke, and then it seemed he sang. The outlook wasn't brilliant for the Mudville 9 that day. His voice robust began. His hands danced in midair. I was stunned, then mesmerized. Dad's recitation rang like music through the screen up and down the street. And now the pitcher holds the ball, and now he lets it go, and now the air is shattered by the force of Casey's blow. It was the power of the rhythm and the pleasure of the rhyme and the utter surprise that this blue-collar dad, mine, had committed to his memory some 40 years ago, a ballad of the Republic, a song of hope pinned on a hero. There was no joy in Pittsburgh, true. Roberto Clemente had struck out, but Dad had knocked it out of the park, and I'd been lit by that poetic spark. So Poetry by the Sea's been mentioned several times, and it's a wonderful conference that I've been to several times. And I wrote a poem about it. And when I wrote the poem, Kim Bridgeford was still with us here on this earth, as my book talks about. And I sent it to her after I wrote it. And she wrote back and said, there are so many poems that are being written about poetry by the sea. How about a chapbook? How about we put together a chapbook? And I said, that's a great idea, but to my knowledge, nobody's done that. So Linda, as a member of the board, just tuck that in your brain and think about it. So when I published it, I titled it Mercy by the Sea in memory of Kim Bridgeford, but it was written when she was still with us. The sisters air the rooms with arms of mercy, opening the windows to the sand. We note the regal allium by the sea and watch a gull dive for a delicacy. We ache for the ineffable. Lord, have mercy. Scratching lines of verse into the sand. Glasses in our hands, we stroll the sand, sipping wine and listening to the sea, whose quiet crashing murmurs, mercy, mercy. Mercy comes in waves by sand and sea. And here's a much more lighthearted one about Old Orchard Beach up the coast there. And it's called Old Orchard Beach. This is the place where God takes living slow. He lifts his hand, the wind takes blowing slow. Sunglassed parents watch sandcastles grow. I don't lose my breath. I take my running slow. Open, empty seashells punctuate the sand. No nesting pearls will take their growing slow. A white, bright gull murders a crab. He picks and pulls and takes his feasting slow. Father throws to daughter, daughter throws to brother. Even frisbees take their spinning slow. Earnest, diapered babies lug their pails. They don't know they take their playing slow. On Old Orchard's hard-packed beach, a woman and her walker take their walking slow. There's time for drowsy dreams to grow where even God takes living slow. One last poem, and you probably need to know, this is a recent poem. It's going to be up on the seawall in a couple of weeks. You probably need to know, to get the gist of this, that my mother, Mrs. Delaney, was my first grade teacher in public school. So before that, well, back when dinosaurs roamed the earth. It's called By Rote. An oak-tag string of ABCs, block style, hangs above the blackboard. Chalk dust tinges the letters of the law. Diligently, a small girl copies each letter, large and small. 40 first graders squirm. One teacher silences giggles and groans. In her navy dress and hushful orange kids, she pads the perimeter. Immersed in the alphabet, the girl ignores Jeffrey Wheeler, who twirls his Cub Scout ring and dreams of kissing her at recess. She daydreams too. Look at my ABCs, Mrs. Delaney. Mommy, look at me. No recess today, outdoor or indoor. Ohio's autumn raindrops ping the windows. Perfect, the child thinks. Look at my big Q with its curly tail. The teacher runs her finger along the child's handiwork stolidly. A second hand ticks one thunderous talk. Tell me what you think of me, entreats the child's heart. U's must not dip below the solid line. The teacher's voice descends and drowns the sound of rain. With an urgency she does not understand, X, 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 X. The child grips the fat yellow pencil. From A to Z, A to Z, again, again, again. Thank you so much. I appreciate so much being here.
Thank you so much, Susan. Okay, let's unmute and show our appreciation. Yay, thank you, Susan.
Thank you for the invitation.
And thank you, all of our features, all of our open micers. I think everyone will agree this has been a fantastic reading. Our December features will be Irena Mashinsky, known to Anton, Marcia Karp, and Arthur Russell. So I'm sure we're also looking forward to that. Thanks, everyone.